All right, let's dive in. Today we're taking a look at Roald Amundsen's Northwest Passage expedition, specifically his preparations and the journey itself.
Yeah, and the sources you've brought are just fascinating. It's a story full of, well, I mean, you name it, daring escapes, incredible resilience, and, those unexpected friendships you find in the most extreme situations.
Exactly. And I think what really drew me to this story was Amundsen's ambition. He was inspired by Sir John Franklin, his childhood hero, who vanished trying to conquer the Northwest Passage. Amundsen was determined to succeed where, so many others had failed.
Absolutely. That Northwest Passage, it was like the ultimate prize for explorers for centuries. This sea route through the Canadian Arctic archipelago, it was a shortcut to the riches of the East, a real holy grail. And Amundsen, he wasn't just some starry-eyed dreamer.
Right, he was known for his meticulous planning.
Exactly. And that's where the Gia comes in. Now, this wasn't some grand, fancy Arctic vessel like you might imagine.
It was a fishing vessel, right?
Yeah, a small, sturdy fishing vessel. Amundsen meticulously outfitted it for those harsh Arctic conditions. It really shows his resourcefulness, his belief in, well, careful planning over just sheer size and power.
But there's that dramatic twist right at the beginning, right?
Oh, absolutely. The sources mention Amundsen was deeply in debt, creditors literally ready to seize the Jaya.
So what did he do?
He set sail in the middle of the night, just slipped away, leaving his debts behind.
Wow, can you imagine the tension? I mean, knowing if they were caught, the expedition would be over before it even began.
Oh, for sure. Talk about determination. But even with all that meticulous planning, things, well, they didn't exactly go smoothly.
No surprise there, right? I mean, we're talking about the Arctic.
Yeah. Think about the Jaya built for rough seas, but not the crushing force of Arctic ice. They hit a rock, almost sank. Then there was a fire in the engine room.
And of course, the storms, right?
Always the storms. It's just incredible they didn't turn back. I mean, I can't even imagine the pressure, the physical dangers, the mental strain.
So how did they keep going? What was the turning point?
Well, Amundsen decides to overwinter on King William Island for, get this, 2 years. At first, it was just to wait for better conditions, but it becomes so much more than that.
Right. This is where he encounters the Inuit people. It's like two worlds colliding in this incredibly desolate landscape.
Absolutely, and you can just imagine the tension. But Amundsen, he knew the importance of diplomacy. He disarmed himself.
He what?
Yeah, disarmed himself and his crew as a sign of respect, showing he was willing to learn from the people who knew the Arctic better than anyone.
Wow. What a powerful gesture.
Yeah.
That's a huge risk, trusting like that in such an uncertain situation. So what happened? Did it pay off?
It did, in a way that, well, it completely transformed the expedition. That cautious exchange, it blossomed into this deep connection. You've got Amundsen's crew stranded, and then the Inuit, these masters of survival. And so an entire Inuit settlement springs up around the Jojo. They were sharing knowledge and skills.
So instead of just waiting out the winter, Amundsen uses this setback as an opportunity, right?
Exactly. He's learning from the Inuit, their clothing, their hunting strategies, their navigation techniques. I mean, everything they'd perfected over centuries of living in this harsh environment.
And Amundsen, I mean, he really embraced it all, didn't he? He even wrote later that those 2 years were the happiest of his life.
Yeah, he did. He recognized the ingenuity of their way of life, their connection to the land, that understanding of how to thrive in such a challenging place.
And it wasn't all theoretical. I mean, these were practical skills that would be essential to the expedition's success.
Oh, absolutely. Like, take their clothing, for example. The Inuit taught him about the importance of the right clothes for survival in the Arctic. Their parkas, made from caribou and seal skin, they offered incredible warmth and protection from the elements.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So Amundsen starts using these designs. I mean, he recognized they were far superior to the European clothing they had brought with them.
Exactly. It's just amazing to think about, isn't it? This renowned European explorer putting aside his assumptions and embracing the wisdom of a culture so different from his own.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the key to success is, having the humility to learn from others, even if they seem completely different from you. And that's just the beginning of their incredible journey.
It's amazing to think about all the challenges Amundsen faced up to this point. Storms, ice, nearly sinking. It's hard to imagine feeling ready to continue even after 2 years with the Inuit.
Yeah, I mean, did he just set sail again and hope for the best? What happened next?
Well, not exactly. It's August of 1905. They've got their new knowledge, their Inuit-inspired clothing, and they set sail. They head into the Simpson Strait.
Okay, and the Simpson Strait, that was a big deal, right? Why?
Oh, yeah. It's really narrow, very shallow, and choked with ice most of the year.
Yeah.
Even a tiny navigational error could have been disastrous. They could have run aground, gotten trapped in the ice.
I remember the Gavio was pretty small.
Mm.
Did that help or hurt them in this situation?
It actually turned out to be a huge advantage. Think about those big, fancy ships other explorers used. They never would have made it through the Simpson Strait. Too big, too deep. But the Gjord,
Because it was smaller and could maneuver better.
exactly. Its shallow draft allowed it to weave through these really tight channels.
So Amundsen's choice, the one made out of necessity, because he didn't have the money for a bigger ship that actually saved them.
You got it. But that doesn't mean it was easy. The Sourcen described the Simpson Strait as this agonizing, slow crawl. At one point, Amundsen said they only had inches of water beneath the keel. Can you imagine that? Hearing the ice grinding against the ship constantly?
The pressure must have been immense. I mean, uncharted waters, every decision potentially meaning the end of the expedition.
Right, and one of the crew members wrote about how the stress was affecting Amundsen. Weeks went by, barely any progress, that fear of the ice trap always there. The sources say Amundsen stopped eating, his health was going downhill.
Wow, he was pushing himself to the limit.
He was. It's easy to forget that these explorers, these heroes, they're still human. They felt doubt, fear, despair just like anyone else.
So did they make it out of the strait?
They did, but it was a close one. After weeks of just inching forward, a lookout finally spotted open water ahead.
Oh, relief. They must have been ecstatic.
You can bet they were. It must have felt like a victory just to escape that strait, but of course that wasn't the end goal.
Right, they still had the entire Northwest Passage ahead of them.
They did, but getting through the Simpson Strait was a turning point. They went west from there, and their confidence was higher. They had the knowledge from the Inuit, and it really started to make a difference.
It wasn't just survival skills anymore. It was a deeper understanding of the whole Arctic environment.
Exactly. They were using Inuit techniques to read the ice, to predict weather patterns, to navigate by the stars. These techniques had been passed down for generations, and they were far more effective than anything Amundsen had learned in Europe.
So Amundsen's conquering the Northwest Passage, but he's doing it by using the Inuit wisdom, adapting to their ways. That's pretty powerful.
It really is. It shows the importance of being open to new ideas, willing to learn, especially from people who are different from us.
And this is just the start of their success. But to hear what happens next, we'll have to wait for the final part of our deep dive. So we left off with Amundsen and his crew, fresh out of the Simpson Strait, still facing the vastness of the Northwest Passage.
Right. The strait was a huge hurdle, but the journey wasn't over by any means. They're still dealing with unpredictable ice, the threat of storms, but they press on. They had that success under their belts and all that Inuit knowledge to guide them.
I can't even imagine the mental toughness that took, weeks, months, maybe even years, all that uncertainty, just incredible.
It really is. And you have to remember Amundsen's role. His leadership, the way he kept that crew going, that belief they could achieve something extraordinary.
And for him, it wasn't just personal glory. The Northwest Passage, he saw it as a key to opening up trade routes, expanding our scientific understanding, connecting the world in new ways.
Absolutely. So did they run into any more major roadblocks after the Simpson Strait?
Or was it smooth sailing to the finish line?
Well, not exactly smooth sailing. They had more trouble with ice, had to make a few detours. But there's this one event that really stands out. It captures the magnitude of what they accomplished.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What happened?
August 26th, 1905. They're sailing near Cape Bathurst, and they come across a whaling ship, the Charles Hanson.
A whaling ship? What was a whaling ship doing that far north?
Well, that's the thing. The Charles Hanson had come from San Francisco through the Bering Strait and into the Beaufort Sea.
So Amundsen didn't just navigate the Northwest Passage from east to west. He met up with a ship coming from the other direction.
That's amazing.
It was undeniable proof they'd done it. They'd actually conquered the Northwest Passage. I can only imagine what that moment was like. Emerging from the Arctic and there's a ship from the Pacific, it must have felt like stepping into a whole other world.
Absolutely. The relief, the joy, the sense of achievement after all they'd been through. It's hard to overstate how significant that was. Amundsen did what so many others had tried and failed to do.
And he did it by challenging the norms.
Yeah.
Right, not relying solely on European methods, but embracing the knowledge of the Inuit.
Exactly. That's what makes the story so powerful. It shows the importance of humility, open-mindedness, and cultural exchange. Amundsen's success wasn't just about a destination, it was about pushing the boundaries of our understanding. It showed the value of learning from others, from cultures different from our own.
So as we wrap up this incredible journey with Amundsen, what are the key takeaways? What can we learn from this?
I think there are a few really powerful lessons here. First, adaptability and resilience. Amundsen faced setback after setback, but he never gave up. He was always adjusting, always learning. And then the importance of respecting and learning from other cultures. His time with the Inuit, it wasn't just about survival skills, it was about seeing things from a different perspective and transforming his whole approach. And lastly, Amundsen's journey shows us that even the most impossible goals, with determination, planning, and the willingness to embrace new ideas, they can be achieved.
Beautifully put. It's clear that Amundsen's success wasn't just about conquering the Arctic, it was about conquering those limitations in his own thinking. He embraced collaboration, cultural understanding, and that's what made all the difference. We hope this deep dive has inspired you to approach your own challenges with curiosity, adaptability, and respect for the knowledge and wisdom of others. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.